Hello, I'm Charlie Strader with the Bonita Springs Historical Society. I've had the good fortune to live along the Imperial River for almost 40 years. I can attest the river is a true treasure for the city of Bonita Springs. As a freshwater source and contributor to a biologically rich estuarine ecosystem, the river and its creeks enticed people to live along its shores before the age of the Calusa Indians, whose villages we find along the river. People have traveled its waters for at least 5,000 years, and even further back in time, extinct megafauna like mastodon, mammoth, and giant ground sloth roamed here, their remains found as fossils in the river channels. People have lived along the shores of the Imperial River for at least 5,000 years. Between 2500 BC and 5000 BC, we find evidence of the Calusa chiefdom with its large shell mounds and villages. The rich resources allowed the development of a complex chiefdom without a dependence on agriculture. As in the time of the Calusa Indians, the river provided a productive habitat and access to a variety of food resources for the early settlers. Like the Calusa, the early townfolk relied on nets for much of their fishing. The Imperial River's fresh water helped create biologically productive estuaries, whose abundant shellfish was gathered by Native Americans and the pioneer settlers. The Imperial River was originally called Surveyor's Creek, or Corkscrew River, on early maps of Florida. It was called Surveyor's Creek as the Army Corps of Engineers camped along its shores when surveying this part of southwest Florida. It was also earlier called Snake Creek or Corkscrew River because of the many bends in its channels. The first settlers called their community Survey and built along the upper river and major tributaries. Oak Creek was once a major tributary used for transporting lumber and citrus. The spring at the Shangri-La Resort flowed into the creek before continuing to the Imperial River. Lightner Creek, another major tributary, emptied into the Imperial River at Bamboo Village. Rosemary Creek runs along Island Park and joins the river across from Depot Park. For centuries, the river provided the main means of transportation, moving people and goods for our community until the opening of railroads and passable roads in the 1920s. The Belle of Fort Myers was often one of the boats that brought residents and visitors to Bonita Springs from Fort Myers via the Caloosahatchee and Imperial Rivers. Boats were used for pleasure and fishing in addition to hauling citrus and lumber and even entire buildings such as the Lightner House and the Wayside Inn Hotel to the new community. The coming of the railroads in the 1920s changed shipping on the river. Only one of the two railroad bridges over the river now remains. Originally, it was a drawbridge. Bonita Springs' first major bridge over the Imperial River was at what we call today the Imperial Parkway, near some Calusa Indian sites and where the Army Corps of Engineers surveyors camped. A sand trail went north to Fort Myers. The completion of the Tamiami Trail, or US 41, in 1928 was a major turning point in the history of Bonita Springs. It brought many seasonal visitors, and its routing on Heitman Avenue changed the center of the community survey to the west. Bonita Springs' first bridge on the Tamiami Trail was a one-lane drawbridge. Can you imagine the endless adventures found in and along the river in the days of old? The community of Survey was renamed Bonita Springs in 1912, and it continued to prosper. The river was given the royal name of Imperial to help market the community to newcomers. Bonita Springs became a popular place for hunters and fishermen, who often stayed at the Wayside Inn, a hotel that was indeed brought down by boat from Fort Myers in the early 1900s. The Imperial River provided access to the back bays, the beach, and to the Gulf waters for both recreation and food. For many years, Bonita Springs was touted as the snook capital of the world. The Imperial River changed little until after 1960 with the introduction of new roads and canals, which changed its historic flows. The Imperial River is part of the Estero Bay watershed and drains about 54,000 acres, or 84 square miles of a funnel-shaped land, which is 2.5 times the size of the city of Bonita Springs. As an obvious environmentally sensitive area, Lee County designated almost 5,000 acres in East Bonita an area of density reduction and groundwater resource in 1989. They placed restrictions on new development to offer a respite from urban sprawl and to protect our drinking water, the Imperial River, and Estero Bay. The river has always been a major asset and amenity for our residents and continues to be a source of recreation. Its health is vital to our town and estuaries. I hope you will visit some of the city's riverfront parks and enjoy its waters and habitat.